Hello and welcome to the news segment from the Roll for Crit podcast, a podcast about board game released weekly on Wednesday, wherever you listen to podcasts. Each episode, we are joined by a guest, and this week, we are joined by Christina Rouse from Blue Peg, Pink Peg. So we hope you're interested for some fun news for the week of November 22nd, 2021.
We have some very fun, silly stories this week, and one story that's not fun or silly at all. And that's the one we're going to start off with to get it out of the way. And it centers around Games Workshop, the publisher behind Warhammer 40K, very popular miniatures battle game in a very dark, grimdark, some might call it, sci-fi world. And there was a tournament, a Warhammer tournament in Spain, which had, they say, around 800 people in attendance. And there was an incident reported by a blog from a guy, I believe, named Lewis Ed. At least that's the moniker he puts on this blog post. And he was talking about, he wrote this entire post. It's in Spanish, so I read it in Google Translate. So forgive me if any of these details aren't 100% correct. But there is one participant in the tournament who has a nickname that goes on leaderboards and all this stuff, that has been participating and was happened to be at this particular event, that translates to Austrian painter. And essentially it's a thinly veiled reference to Adolf Hitler. Ooh. And he, at this event, was wearing a few pieces, a few symbols and emblems that are associated with neo-Nazis. And the blog is about how, there was no response from anybody from Games Workshop. They didn't kick him out. He's been allowed to participate, all this stuff, and how this has been a problem in some parts of the community. Since then, Games Workshop did publish a statement. It was a few weeks after this blog post, emphasizing that they're not about hate and that they hope no one takes the things in their game literally and doesn't actually identify with these horrible murderous armies that you're controlling, and tried to emphasize that people who, if you're running a tournament, we give you every right to kick people out. We want to make sure this is a safe, welcoming community. And that's where we're at now. So Christina, I don't know, what do you think about all these issues? I hope that it's not something you have ever personally had experience with, but how do you feel about this, the possibility for something like this at a tournament? And what do you think about Games Workshop's response? Do you think that this has been, you think that's enough on their end?
I mean, I think even though it might not happen to you personally, this kind of thing definitely happens in our industry, right? We've seen it in stories that have come out of late, just experiences people have had that have not been stellar in the manner of representing the hobby in a really positive way. So I think it definitely happens. The fact that it happened at such a large event is kind of surprising. If a tournament with 800 people, and supposedly this individual is it sounds like they're pretty, notorious of going to a lot of these tournaments. So it's not like they showed up first time and people were like, oh, I wonder who this is. Like, it sounds like they've kind of done this repeatedly. I don't know. It's just not a really good look. I think not necessarily for Warhammer, but just, the tournament group itself that, set up the event. So I think the response they had was entirely appropriate, especially if people are asking, like, what are you going to do about this? What's your stance on things? You definitely have to step up to the table and say what kind of environment and space you want your gamers to have. So I appreciate that they came forward and said, look, this isn't what we stand for. This isn't what we represent. And bad actors do need to be called out and, told to exit, because gaming needs to be a place that's safe for everybody. It's unfortunate it happened, but I think what's great, it's not great that it happened, but what's great is that people are identifying that when these things happen, it's not okay and that we need to do something about it. So I think I've seen that shift quite a bit lately.
Yeah, it's always, and it shouldn't be at this point, honestly, but for me, it's always sort of sobering when these things crop up to be like, I like to think that in the board game community, this kind of thing doesn't happen. But obviously I don't think any community is really safe from it. And yeah, one of the things in the blog that this writer lamented was that he felt like he was the only one talking about it at that time. And I don't know if how much of it maybe has to do with, again, this tournament was in Spain. I don't know. I mean, I think that this culture and the things associated with these negative symbols permeates like the world. I think it's pretty ubiquitous, but I don't know. As an American, I don't know. Will, what do you think? You think there's any possibility of a cultural difference that might have done something with here? I don't want to be, I guess I won't ask. Don't answer that if you don't want to, because I don't want you to feel like you're going to offend everybody.
I don't think it's cultural in the sense of like Spanish culture versus American culture as much as like, this is not a major sport. This is even a niche within the tabletop community in a competition in another language. So it's gonna disperse, a little bit slower.
Yeah.
So I just think and I mean, the internet is a very fast place. It speeds up everything, but that would be my guess. I mean, you even said, Jonathan, you found out and read it through Google Translate.
Right.
It's not the biggest.
Yeah, it's since been reported on in English by other people. And of course, Warhammer. I mean, even in Games Workshop statement, they don't actually acknowledge. No, I mean, same thing. They don't actually acknowledge this event. It almost seems like they don't actually say what they're responding to, which is a little weird.
It's a little weird. I understand also wanting to make one, in this case, maybe make it like, look, this is the generic. Next time this happens, point to this post.
Yeah,
I don't want to completely pull them out of the fire because they've been doing some other things too, and more of just in general with Warhammer stuff. But yeah, I mean, this is something that should be stated. Unfortunately, we have to state it, and I'm surprised. Like, I know, like I was reading one thing how like, yeah, the Warhammer universe, very dark. I mean, the Imperium of Man does have things that we would not be very proud of actually happening in the real world. That doesn't give you the right to actually support in real life. Like, if I'm playing Magic, that doesn't let me actually throw fireballs at you.
Yeah.
There should be a line that hopefully you could see where
it is interesting because I'm not in that world at all. I mean, I have no feet, no toes in the Warhammer or miniature space. So it never occurred to me that, but from what I've read, people have said that in certain sects of the community, this can be an issue because the wrong people associate with these characters.
Yeah, I could see it, but it's sort of like when someone doesn't realize it's so dark. That's why there's so many great Warhammer parodies, because these characters are like beyond
right,
like in just their craziness.
Yeah. But well, hopefully going forward, they stick to that statement, and they're open to people talking about this. And I mean, I haven't heard any. I didn't see an official statement that like this guy has been banned or anything.
Yeah, I would like to see that. That would be a good start.
Or at least tell him that, like, look, you're welcome to participate in the tournament, but you not like this. Like, if whatever reasoning they have for doing what they did was, well, this is my character, okay, well, not here. Like, this is read the room and also be mindful about what you're putting out there. Like, I can't imagine someone leaving their house going, yes, this is a good idea. Like, here I go.
Yeah,
maybe read the time period.
Right.
Yeah, it's pretty wild and sad, and it's also just a reminder that it's like I knew this stuff has been cropping up in the United States. I didn't realize it was also. I mean, I should have, I suppose, worldwide happening, but yeah, it's upsetting. Maybe part of it too is that, again, like he didn't the symbols that he had were not. They weren't like swastikas. They were like the guy in the blog said he had to Google it, so maybe a lot of people just didn't notice it.
Yeah, but there comes a point, I feel like, if because the thing I read said multiple people were forced to forfeit if they didn't want to play him. If like you notice it, that's like, oh, he's not doing anything, and meanwhile the guy's like covered with Cheeto dust in his hands, and like I just feel like there's certain signs that like even if I have to Google the name, if you realize like, oh wait, that's the name of this famous Nazi group or something like military, then I realize he has that symbol, and then the colors, like
it's not an excuse, but it could be a partial explanation as to why it's taken this long, maybe.
Yes.
But anyway, we will see how that all goes. At least they put out a statement, so that's a step in the right direction. And now on to the fun stories.
Yay!
We got through everybody. We got through the serious, important stuff.
Get that out of the way. Let's hit the good stuff.
Yeah, so acknowledge that, be aware of that. That's important. Now we can goof off a little bit. Here's an announcement that came about just in time for Thanksgiving that I thought was pretty interesting. Baked Potato Games, they publish a lot of silly party games. They do the Blockbuster game and several others. They have a new endeavor, which is actually out right now, that they're calling Big Screen Games, that are games that you play on your TV via a device or a website on a device, such as a phone or a laptop. And they're party games that you can play around a TV with anybody. They have 3 to begin with that are based on their existing games, Herd Mentality, Can of Squirms, and Scrawl. So there's like word game, there's a drawing game in there. But the reason I find this interesting is because if any of this sounds kind of familiar to anybody, it's probably because you've played the Jackbox Party Pack games.
Right.
And as far as I can tell, this is the first time there's really been a competitor in that space. Like Jackbox has really kind of dominated that. They've kind of invented that style of game and have been running with it, especially during the last year when everyone was stuck at home. It became even bigger. Christina, are you a Jackbox fan? And do you think this has the potential to be something that could complement or replace Jackbox games?
Yeah, so I didn't mention that when we get together with our family, we play a lot of Jackbox games because it's in that ilk of it's fun. You don't have to have a lot of thought behind it. It brings everybody together, but in a different kind of manner using a different platform. So we play a lot of Jackbox games, and they've always been a really big hit with any group we've introduced them to. So when I saw this news, I was like, the first thing I said was like, okay, Jackbox, like what? I don't know. I think it's going to be tough for them to find. I think what they would have to do is find games that are so different from what is already accessible on Jackbox to be able to compete or at least stand out with what Jackbox has going on. And they have a ton of party packs, Jackbox does. So I'd be intrigued to see actually how it plays, and is it similar or different to what's currently already out there?
Yeah, I think they have a couple of things to their advantage, but before I say them, I want to ask Will what he thinks, if there's anything about this, or even just personally to you, like, does this seem like you would like? I'm sure you would give it a shot if asked, but
yeah, I mean, I've played a couple of their games, and I could easily see it working well with this TV format. I also feel like even though Jackbox exists, I guess in my mind, these could still sit side by side the same way that, Arkham Horror and Ticket to Ride sit side. Like, I know those aren't similar games, but like, I just imagine like it'd just be this would almost be like another like third party Jackbox. Though the one thing I would like to see them do that would make them, at least to me, stand out a bit more from Jackbox is with Jackbox, you have to buy pack 6. In this, I think would be, it seems like that's what they're doing, but I would like to be like, you can just buy snakes.
No, well, I'm pretty sure that is how it works. That was that was one of the things I was going to say. They're not selling a game like they are. They're not sell. It's not like you can buy this on Steam. It's through their website only, I believe, and you are playing via a website. So the thing that's on your TV is either using a smart TV or a laptop hooked up to an HDMI cable, and you're all connected to a website. And I believe that the website is a launcher that you'll be able to add games to in the future, whether they be in bundles or individually, I don't know. But it doesn't seem like they're doing the model of number 2, number 3, number 4. Which I think is cool, because that is one thing I kind of wish Jackbox had, because by the time now you've got 8 of them, it's like, which one had this game? And now we got to load up that one to play the one we like. And the other thing is, I do think for people who play a lot of Jackbox, and there are some people who, again, especially in the last year, just play like all these games online a lot. I do think those people might be, the games, I love Jackbox, but you can get tired of them. They can get kind of old.
Right.
If their games are different enough, which, to be honest, the ones they started with seem pretty much in the same wheelhouse, like they're not that outside the box. But it could be something where people go, oh, this finally like a new kind of Jackbox game because we haven't played yet.
So, it might be a little breath of fresh air for those that are tired of the same old Jackbox. So I'm intrigued. I don't think it's wrong for publishing companies to start thinking in this realm of platforms, of maybe turning some of their games into more accessible, digitally accessible type of games, because to Will's point, I think you can have 2 people at the table offering the same kind of thing, because people are going to cater to one or the other based on what they like.
Yeah,
I also feel, and maybe this is me feeling a little bit old and pessimistic, that if I took 2 of the same games, but one of them was their digital version, like using your phone and stuff, I think I could get like my younger relatives more likely to play those than versus just putting pieces of cardboard on a table.
Yeah, that's definitely often true. I also am looking at their official website where you can buy this, and even on in their own description, it says like Jackbox TV, but with more potatoes.
Oh,
so they're not even like shy about it. They're like, look, there's Jackbox. It's what
now
you want.
I really hope now the next Jackbox collection like goes back and has like a game all about potatoes.
Yes.
Yeah, right. Hey, speaking of Thanksgiving, there's your even more tie-in. So that's out there right now. It's $15 to sign up, and you get these 3 games. Maybe they might even add like a game or 2 for free. I think they could do interesting things with the website model. Like you could do, for this week, the games are free, and then you have to sign up. So I don't know, something to think about. Maybe give it a test run. Another new game announced is from Gale Force 9, who we really like. We have been happy with most of the games we played from them, including Firefly, the board game. They've done a few Firefly games. They've reprinted Dune, the new version of Dune, recently. They've got a whole bunch of things under their belt. And now they have a new title called Wise Guys, which is a 1920s Prohibition era game wherein players are all rival gangs, and you're trying to control different territories and make the most money by selling off your booze at the black market. There's also an emphasis on negotiation and trading in the game. And this is the very first game Gale Force 9 has ever made, announced, published that is not a licensed title.
Oh.
So that's what sticks out to me the most about this. It comes from, I can't remember the name of the designer. I looked him up earlier, but it's a guy who has done, mostly bringing it back to miniatures games. Most of the stuff he's done is like World War II themed miniatures games, which is interesting to me. Maybe he's co-designed or worked on others. Like Phil Yates is his name, but it's Gale Force 9 doing a Prohibition era competitive game. Any of this sound fun to you, Christine? Are you a Gale Force 9 person?
I tend not to be, just because typically I play things obviously with Rob, but we don't have a lot of Gale Force 9 titles. You said this is their first, independent, like, not IP game, Wise Guys. I think this is also called Boardwalk Empire, the game. I'm pretty sure. Which I love that historical setting. That's like, I'm always drawn to that. So typically when games have that theme, prohibition, gangsters, the whole kind of black market, shady dealing kind of things, I'm drawn to them. I don't know what that says about me as a person, but anyway. So it would be something that if I had access to it, I would definitely play it because it looks interesting.
Yeah, it's not exactly a theme that is. I don't think they're doing anything with it that's particularly fresh, to be honest. Like you said, it's Boardwalk Empire, but I do like the trading aspect sounds interesting. You're allowed to pretty much at any time freely make deals with each other, and they explicitly state that future promises are non-binding. So you could say, pay me $10 or whatever, and I won't attack you next turn. And then you could just attack somebody. And you could totally lie and betray people like that, which is the kind of thing I find fun, but I think it's not the kind of thing Will finds fun, but maybe he'll tell me he does want to try it.
I mean, I'll try. Just know that I keep things outside the game, so be ready for whatever the next game we play is.
Yeah, well, you just don't trade with that person anymore, I think, if they try to pull that one. But I mean, do you think that? I guess there's no reason that they couldn't make a good non-licensed game. And a licensed game is just a game with a different theme on it. But I wonder, do you think there's any particular hurdles, or I mean they don't have as much experience, I guess, marketing a game doesn't sell itself because people already like Aliens or whatever.
That's true, but I mean, like you guys said, I think this is a very
a safe bet,
romanticized, I almost want to say, just like prohibition and stuff. It's one that a lot of people do know about, at least in America, and it's like, oh, that's when the gangs are going on, it's when this, so like, and what was happening there, you could say that's easy. Oh, that's territory control. That's resource management. I don't think it's too hard, and it's based on real people, so you're not making up any names here.
Right. There was a game a couple of years ago called Speakeasy Blues that Artana put out, and it got overlooked, but it was all about prohibition and just kind of being the biggest boss in the city, and it was doing a lot of really neat things that I liked. So I think, yes, they might have trouble marketing the game because the game title itself isn't going to pull people in, but the theme of it, I think people like. I think there's some deep-seated thing in people that they want to be shady gangsters, and so they will play.
It's kind of got all the Wild West thing to it. We want to be free from the law or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah, the one I remember that we really liked was the Opulent, which was another kind of speakeasy game.
That was a bit more, you ran just the entire speakeasy. Person had to make sure the right, like the band one had to run behind the bar and stuff.
yeah. I think that was from Black Locust Games, so I don't think exists anymore, sadly. But yeah, there's a few good gangster games. Oh, there's the Godfather. We haven't tried that one. Eric Lang did a Godfather game.
Oh, I haven't played that one either.
Just give that a shot. What was the name of the one you just said, Christina?
Speakeasy Blues.
Speakeasy Blues. I'll have to look into that. All right. So that's coming soon, they say, but we don't know exactly when. I always like the end towards the end of the year because I can say every game will be coming 2022 because it's probably correct.
It's a safe bet.
Yeah, it's nice and easy. And last story relates to the world of television. If people weren't following Jeopardy over the last year, maybe you didn't know there's been a search for a new host and a lot of guest hosts that have been coming out. And there's been a lot of back and forth and some controversy as to who would be the host. And one of the frontrunners, kind of at least, that people were really pushing for online was Levar Burton, formerly of Star Trek and Reading Rainbow. And he did not get the job. But now, as it turns out, he is going to be hosting his own game show based on the board game Trivial Pursuit. And that's pretty much all we know about it right now. There hasn't been any other details as to exactly how that's going to work. But maybe, Christina, I don't know if you have I'm sure you're a LeVar Burton fan. Everybody is.
I am and I'm going to show my age probably. I'm a Reading Rainbows LeVar Burton fan.
Sure.
And so first of all, I was I was excited when he was potentially going to be the host of Jeopardy. And then when that didn't pan out, I'm glad that this fell in his lap, because I would be intrigued to see how the game show format plays out. I have thoughts about how they could make it work, but again, with all of the different game shows that exist in the world now, having to find something to make it just a little different, I don't know what they're going to do.
Yeah, it's a good question. Will, what are they going to do? How do you do it?
I
How
don't
do you
know.
make this show?
I mean, I want to see, but I've seen a lot of times when they're trying to make a board game into a game show, and I don't know. But Trivial Pursuit, I feel like might work as it sort of is. Like, I'm actually picturing the video game version, which is just a game show with rotating platforms and make things look very pretty and very generic avatars.
I mean, is it like, obviously they're answering trivia questions. I assume they will pick a category and they're trying to get, triangle wedges. Like, what makes this not just watching people play Trivial Pursuit? Maybe that's all it has to be. Maybe you don't need to.
I think it's pretty much going to be that, but with a lot more lights and sound effects.
Right.
Maybe a different color pattern.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that for me, this is almost the best scenario from all that stuff, because I think it's cooler. I mean, it's not really an original game show. It's based on a board game, but I think it's cooler if LeVar Burton has his own game show that he can kind of own and be his own thing.
He is a producer on it as well, right? Yeah, executive to produce it. Though no network. I wonder if they're going to go to like cable network first, or would they go straight to trying like something like Netflix, streaming?
I don't know.
I would say that they might test it out on the streaming first. I mean, honestly, I don't even know how many people still have cable. Like, we don't have cable, so
My instinct would be that game shows might be one of the types of shows that still can do really well on cable, because I feel like people will just kind of, click around and watch stuff like that. But yeah, there could be a world where that's on something else. We'll find out. But that should be fun. Again, right now it's still early, but I bet it will be premiering sometime in 2022. So we'll
a safe bet.
That's right. We'll look forward to that show. All right, that's the news for this week.
You have reached the end of the video, but before you go, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe, and maybe try to help us out on Patreon if you can. If you want to hear more from us, we've also got a podcast. This is released weekly, and there'll be links down below for wherever you want to listen to podcasts.